Hey everybody, my name is Christian. I'm here with Revival Gardening. I'm sitting next to my father. We have Jim Bennett on the other end, also known as Clackamas Coot. We're hoping to do a little quick interview with him, go over some of our products, and get a little more information out of him. So,
Sounds good. How you doing, Jim? Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I should explain to your audience, Clackamas is a tribal name that later became the name of a river that I live near. So and I live in Clackamas County, so it's nothing mysterious. It sounds kind of
yeah,
odd.
it's a
It
region
could
up in
because
Oregon, right? You're up in Oregon,
right.
Pacific Coast, yeah.
I'm at the end of the Oregon Trail where this was the first community established west of the Rocky Mountains by Europeans. So, yeah, a lot of history here. I live in the historical district where a lot of the homes were built between 1930 and 1830 and 1920. Though our home isn't old like that because of the building covenants, you couldn't do a Frank Lloyd Wright. It has to like fit in. So,
Mm,
but we have things like, triple pane windows and forced air heating and, the luxuries of
sure, sure.
our,
So we're all
our
the way out here on the East Coast. So
Orlando, yeah.
yeah, how
yeah.
how did that? How did we ever meet?
Yeah,
Right.
the story of Jim and I meeting.
So I get a call from a person who owns a online garden supply company called Build a Soil. And it's late January and it's cold, it's rainy. And he says to me, "Hey, how'd you like a trip to Florida?" He said, "It sounds good to me." So he said, "I want you to go look at a Karanja orchard." And I found that interesting because I've used Karanja oil and meal for years, but I'd never seen a tree since I hadn't been to India. And the area, that part of India where the tree originated in Kerala. So I end up in, was it Fort Pierce?
Yeah, the Fort Pierce office. But you went all the way down. They took you all the way down to Big Sugar's plantation to
Oh,
look
I
at
just
these.
meant where Tom lived. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's near Fort
Yeah.
Pierce, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Mark had an association with the people that were behind the Karanja orchard
Turkey
and
though.
some, what do you call it? Industrial uses like making biofuel. And they had, when you press oil out of seeds, what's left over is called cake, and around the rest of the world, but in the United States, we call it meal. It's a difference without a distinction. So they were kind of wanting to know what can we do with this meal. And so that's what my purpose of going down there was for, to see these trees, which are really odd looking. They don't look like a conventional, well, they're a
Yeah,
tropical tree.
sure.
So anyway, that's how I got involved. So then I reported back to Jeremy, and he placed a humongous order for oil and meal, and thus kickstarted a relationship with the Florida manufacturers, excuse me, processors of these seeds. So the history of the seed goes back a lot of years, centuries, really, millennia. And it has it's unusual in that it's a legume, which means the tree can fix nitrogen from the atmosphere in and around the root system. So basically, it can feed itself, which makes it good options for parts of the world where the soil isn't as good as you might want to try to do a different type crop. And there's so many uses. There's medicinal uses. There's industrial uses. It's an oil, so it can be used in paint, automobile, any other way that you could use a
Cosmetics, yeah.
vegetable oil.
Gotcha,
And
yeah.
the
So,
medicinal properties for both livestock as well as humans can't be overstated.
hmm,
And as a matter of fact, during the last couple of years, both neem and Karanja have been used in India to combat COVID and other, because it's not only is it antibacterial and fungicide, but it's also antiviral properties. So it's history with the subcontinent in India from both trees goes back probably at least 5,000 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think our audience or people might be familiar with neem, but the Karanja is now
Right.
produced here in Florida, kind of locally sourced here in the U.S., and that's kind of a benefit and plus
Well, there's
with the
another
same products.
advantage because you have tropical weather patterns in parts of Florida, not unlike India. So for some of the uses in India might not be appropriate here in, say, the Northwest where it's cold and damp, but it would definitely not have any of those issues in a place like major parts of Florida. I'm not an expert on weather
Yeah,
patterns in the Sunshine State, but anyway, get the idea.
yeah. No, and we've used
That's an
Karanja in
incredible
our garden.
resource.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
an incredible resource.
yeah, it was interesting when the Terviva company first came here. I was working for a different organization, and we were looking at it as biofuel, and it worked for
Right.
biofuel. And then we were vetting the company. It was part of what we were doing on a federal grant thing to bring energy-related companies,
Sure.
bioagriculture, and we found out that it had many, many uses. So when we looked at it, we said, so right now biodiesel was a thing, 10
Right.
years ago. But it could be used for all these different things. And when the commodity market changed, Terviva took that change with it. And so their farms here now are certified organic. It's processed here, and it went from being used as a biofuel to being used as a supplement for human consumption, the oil.
Yes.
And but they were, what are we doing with the meal? So I met you at the opening of the Karanja plant, if you remember, and we got to talking, and we started using this. You and I just got to talking. We started using this in the mixes and trying it out with a feed for worms to make worm castings, and found it fabulous. It just incredible results, and so now they're looking at all the agricultural aspect, use of the meal and the oil, and it's just opened up a lot of opportunities. And so if you could tell our audience a little bit more about like your experience with the oil itself, how are you using it to in IPM?
Okay. Okay. I was introduced to neem originally about 22 years ago. And then Karanja became available from the same distributor here in the United States. They both provide similar benefits with regard to pesticide, fungicide, nitrification, holding nitrogen in the soil, making it available to the roots of the plants. But they're very different trees. The neem tree is a member of the mahogany family, and the Karanja tree is more closely related to alfalfa or a pinto bean plant than it is a neem tree. It's a legume. So as I delved into it and learned that doing a mixture of neem and Karanja elevated the properties of both oils. So in a high dollar crops, it could be used safely. It deconstructs in a matter of a few hours of sunlight. That's why we want to apply it at night or in the late evening. You don't want to do it in the morning where the direct sun is going to come beating down on it, because sunlight deconstructs these compounds because they're very simple hydrocarbons, hydrogen, carbon, oxygen molecules. What is amazing is that it, as a pesticide, it's not a poison. You could drink, I'm not suggesting that you do that, but you could literally drink Karanja or neem, and while it wouldn't be pleasant, it wouldn't be deadly. Or if a child got into it, and as children do, and drank some, they might not feel so good, but they're not going to be, you wouldn't have to be concerned about a death or something. The way that these compounds in these oils work is, one is preventing the organism from procreating. So you've already started to limit the population that way. It inhibits the organism's ability, the insect's ability to consume food. So that stops the eating of your leaves or your tomatoes or your, strawberries, what have you. And without a poison, it interrupts the biological functions of the organism so that they die by atrophy, really. And so when you use it in our gardens, especially with food production, or say a person, especially I would think in Florida with your weather patterns, must have some beautiful flower gardens. You got the right ingredients, unlike Oregon. Sometimes we see the sun, sometimes it takes a few months. But I mean, so you could use that material, ensure the health of your plant without endangering your pets or your children, family members, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, that kind of thing.
Well, not only that, we add it to the Clackamas Coot soil mix, the living soil mix. We use it to make our feed and protect teas. We feed it to the worms, and we'll spray it on our fruit trees in the evening, and the next day the bees are on it. It doesn't. So you're not hitting the pollinators,
right?
But it's taking care of business for you. And if you do it once a week, if you apply this stuff once a week in a tea form using the meal, it kind of just, we find we have a lot less problems, just a whole lot less problems,
That's a good way for the homeowner to use the meal, is to soak it in some water, do what I call strain and drain, and then dilute it to the correct. You've got all those recipes, and then
it's on the
spray
website.
it. Now, where the oil comes in, that has to be emulsified. The old oil and water don't mix. Well, they do if you emulsify the oil. That takes another step, but that really elevates. Say you have I don't know what kinds of herbivore insects you deal with in Florida, but
all of them.
Okay, so aphids, whiteflies, spider mites.
All the time.
Just bring the list out.
Sure,
that's
sure.
that's us.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and we got some more to add to it, probably.
Exactly.
That's where the oil would probably be. I would say that the meal would be a good maintenance.
Yes.
To arrest an invasion. The oil would be the first step.
Yeah, we use the meal as a proactive to try to keep things out. Right. If you missed it or something weird happens, then the oil is a great reactive, what I call, method, but it's very effective. I mean,
well, here's what's ironic too, is that when we add it to these meals, to our worm bins, the compounds, the active, what botanists refer to as secondary metabolites, remain intact. So those benefits are passed on through our worm castings. And so when, like you guys do, so when it's installed in the raised beds or containers, whatever you're doing, those benefits are there. And so right off at the start, you have healthy starts, you're gonna have healthy plants. It's not like, well, I'll just add some fertilizer. This one doesn't look too good. You want it to be good by putting it in the right soil that's biologically alive, because that's what it's about. It's not about.
Well, I wanted to maybe then take a step back and then kind of talk to our audience about those who don't know Jim, and maybe, as we said, he's kind of the creator of the living soil, and Karanja is one ingredient of that soil.
It is,
but we have a plethora of other ingredients that work together, to create that
for the living soil. You mean
symbiotic? Yeah.
Yeah, if
So-
we put the recipe on the site, everybody can find it on the internet. The living soil, the Clackamas Coot mix. We've got the neem cake in it, the Karanja cake in it, the basalt in it, the North Atlantic sea kelp in it. Besides your gypsum, you got lime, of course, for pHing, and you need the sulfur,
But our castings.
and the castings.
Right.
And so actually the feed, just so the audience knows, the feed that we feed our worms, it's a dry feed, and it goes on our Florida peats, not sphagnum peat moss, was helped develop by Jim. And you've seen the test results. We've got high carbon, good electrical conductivity, and but we put the basalt and those minerals. We feed that to the worms. So this all
Right.
comes out in the casting. So show them what a 15-pound bag looks like. It's right here. Here it is. A 15-pound bag like this.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay, can do a 4x8 garden just by sprinkling it around the plants.
Yeah. Top.
And
Right.
it's a premium cast. And
Yes.
we worked hard at getting this formula down to be consistent with Jim's help, with the feed on the peat, and to get everything just right and be consistent, so that if you did nothing else, you could just use castings. Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to do more, that's when you use the teas, the Karanjas, and
That's where
things
the
of that sort.
biology is coming
This is
from.
where the biology is coming from. Okay. So, if you can speak to Jim a little bit about, I think a lot of people here in Florida don't even know what worm castings are. And then,
Well, that's not unique to Florida, unfortunately. I'll give you an example. I have really high standards on what I use to mix my soils. For your audience, if you want to look up my online presence, look up Clackamas Coot soil mix. And last time I checked, you'll probably get about 5,000 hits. I've been doing this for a couple decades, showing people how to build a soil that will support healthy plants to grow food, medicine, what have you. I'm not about chemistry, I'm about biology, botany. It's about microbes, and nothing is more microbial active than worm castings, also known as vermicompost. And when you craft them like you folks have, the way that I learned from my worm guy, many years ago, you can't help but be successful in terms of getting the healthiest plant from that genetic profile of that cultivar. So I know you were telling me many years ago, well, not that many, but a few years ago, about a tomato in Florida that grows like a grape.
the Everglades tomato. Yeah, the Everglades tomato.
So let's use that one, because the two plants that dominate home gardeners, why they have a garden, is corn and tomatoes, for the simple fact that American agriculture can't produce either one of those that taste decent. So you got to grow your own. If you want to get tomato, you got to grow your own.
Got to grow your own.
That's the reality. And corn too. But that tomato, if you were to grow it in your soil mix, as opposed to something from a do-it-yourself store, doesn't matter. Just go pick one out. They're all the same.
Yeah.
The soil mix is, well, that's an opinion. I'll leave that one on the table. I haven't bought potting soil in 20.
Well, the difference is, if you use that stuff, you got to work in your garden. If you use the Clackamas Coot or the living soil, it's fun.
Takes care of it.
Things take care of itself.
Yeah, go for a walk, get a bike. I used to tell people, you're going to have to get a bike and get a new hobby. Because
Exactly.
You're not going to be dinking around in your garden every day, worrying about, why is that leaf turning yellow? Well, a lot of reasons probably, but it doesn't have to be that convoluted and insane. Plants, we're here. It goes like this. There's three kingdoms. There's the fungi kingdom that created the plant kingdom, followed up by the animal kingdom. And having said that, humans were at the last to arrive. So we already have millions of years history of fungi taking care of business, the plant kingdom taking care of business, and the less humans get involved in all that,
Yeah,
things tend to go
a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I
it
mean-
doesn't have to be insane. The everything that I promote and have tell people consider using this has been tested over and over by hundreds and thousands of people. This isn't, I didn't, invent something last week. I'm taking history going back 5,000 years on two of the items, Karanja and neem, or Pangami, I guess is probably a more common name if you're Indian or from India. But kelp meal, that
Oh yeah.
can date that back to
North Atlantic sea kelp, yeah,
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah, it's funny because we have people in Florida going, "Oh, I just go to the beach and get some seaweed." It's like, if that were true, how come there's no, with all the beaches we have, right? We're a peninsula. How come there's no seaweed companies here? It's not the same thing. It's got to be North Atlantic sea kelp.
There's a treaty with it. I mean, there's a whole
And-
goes.
and-
Yeah.
Okay, so marine biologists categorize kelp in three branches. There's green marine algae, there's red marine algae, and there's brown. And brown's the one that we want because brown has properties that do not exist in any other plant on this globe. Alginic acid being the big one. That is used in medicine. It's used in all kinds of things. Alginic acid, it is profitable to harvest brown kelp and only extract. You wouldn't, but if you just extracted the alginic acid, it would be a profit revenue stream.
Right.
So we get it. And the other thing is that because kelp is a plant, all of the elements that it took up, 83 of them, 83 elements, are already been chelated so that when we add that kelp meal to our soil, the elements are bioavailable to the plant right off the bat. They don't have to be deconstructed in the soil and break down. See where I'm going with this?
Yeah,
And as opposed to say you got phosphorus from a rock source and you applied it. Well, it's going to take weeks. It depends on a whole bunch of factors, but weeks, if not months, for that phosphorus to be bioavailable. Whereas with kelp, you have everything a plant needs to thrive, not just survive. But more importantly, or at least in my view, more importantly, is that they're in the right balance because it wasn't done by a fertilizer salesman.
Yeah.
The plant,
I'll tell you how effective these things are. Before I met you, I was gardening like everybody else, thought I was organic gardening, what have you. This guy didn't garden. And one day he comes in and he goes, I see all this stuff out there and all this stuff coming in the house. I don't see it working anymore. I'm like, no. So the guy I'm on the phone with, Jim, and so he goes, what's up with this stuff? Because he saw the difference in me not having to work and having this abundance. It looked like Jurassic Park. And so he got involved in this thing. And next thing you know, we're doing it and experimenting with worm castings. And then we just got into the vermiculture and just, that's what happened. That's what happened to us. It took off. It's that profound using these natural ingredients, the difference it make not only in the taste and the abundance, but the lack of having to go out every day and go, what do I got to fight today? 90% of that went away. It was just like, just do this once a week. And the hardest thing was, what am I going to pick?
This is a little bit geeky, but I think it's important to point out that when we create a living soil like that and grow our plants in it, or vegetable plants or fruits or what have you, it does a more efficient job of accumulating nutrients. So in other words, you're increasing the nutrient density of the food.
Right.
Yeah.
You grow tomatoes in a greenhouse with no soil, hydroponically using chemical salts, it's not going to have the flavor, the aroma. It doesn't smell like a tomato, does it?
Doesn't
Because
the shelf life?
it
The
isn't.
shelf life.
Yeah, right.
And then I
Yeah.
guess maybe I don't want to segue or jump around, but I think another misconception is like the whole MPK, kind of myth.
Right.
Not myth, but it's a whole. That's what is the
That's what we're
focus,
trained to
you know,
believe.
Right.
NPK.
And what's interesting is I apologize. I don't remember. It was a German chemist who came up with the MPK thing in mid-century, 19th century, 1860, something like that. And within a few years, a book was written by another chemist called Bread from Stones. And you can find that online, open source. And so that whole MPK thing was already shot down before the turn of the century, before 1900. And so that book, for people that are really want to get involved in the history of how do we get to soil being not so good, reading Bread from Stones would be a really good start. And that it goes into the importance of adding rock dust.
Mineralization.
That's what hence the title, Bread from Stones, because at its very basic, soil is nothing more than decomposed animal organisms and plants and shattered rock. So how did the rocks get shattered? From lichen, which is a combination of fungi and bacteria, and over billions of years, it peels off layers. That at its basic, if you talk to a true soil scientist, yeah, that's soil. So without any of those components, you don't have soil. And probably before you met me, what's rock dust? And it's not something they discussed after dinner. Hey, did
No,
you
nobody
pick up rock dust from Home Depot or something?
Yeah, right.
They don't sell it. Trust me, if they could make money, they'd sell. They don't know about it.
Yeah.
But it was funny. I was talking with a cattle guy who grass fed, and they were having all kinds of problems. He said, we're having all kinds of problems with the grass, the cattle, and said, we remineralized the soil with rock dust. The grass straightened up, the cows' problems went away, and everything is hunky-dory. We got great grass-fed beef. Simply from mineralization.
Yes. There's a really good website called Remineralize the Earth. And it's a not-for-profit organization, and they work in second and third world countries, incorporating rock dust to raise the nutrient profile of the food that they're growing. And that was one of the reasons I got involved in this, in living soils, is because that's really the focus. What we've done to agriculture, we produce volume, but the quality of the food is, I'll just use the word lacking. Otherwise, you wouldn't. How big is the supplement industry in this country?
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's some of it's good, some of it's another snake oil. I mean, you got
Right.
And the whole thing is, if we could get it out of our food, like that's how it was designed by nature, we wouldn't be needing all these supplements. And we would just feel better. We'd think better. We'd work better. We wouldn't be as sick. We wouldn't have to buy. The whole healthcare industry is, I don't want to get into it, but it's all built on you're sick, you got to go to the doctor. I mean, 4 to 5 commercials are, you go tell your doctor you need this medicine. I'm like, there's something wrong here. Our food is medicine. Okay.
Yes, I mean after years of synthetic fertilization and depletion of soils, and now we have something that we can introduce to rebuild the soil health, and I mean over time, of course, but
Yeah, when you use the living soil, you don't throw it away after 6 months or 3
No.
months.
It
You
gets
just put
better.
back. It gets better. You just have to put
Yeah.
back in whatever the plant that you grew and it took out,
Right.
which is
And
usually.
we can
Go ahead.
easily do that with kelp meal, because again, we're back to 83 elements, and the nitrogen is in the proper balance of molybdenum and manganese, as well as magnesium. See what I mean? And we're not that sharp. Let the plants take care of this, and don't say, well, I think if I just jack up the nitrogen, I'll get a fat, blah, 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 And so,
Well, it's funny is I've got people go, Mark, the plant looks like it needs nitrogen, or no, although they tell me we've done a soil test, it shows we're low on nitrogen. I go, well, does the plant say anything? No, the plant looks fabulous. I'm like, because it's probably pulling nitrogen out of the air and working with the soil.
yeah.
It's just
There's so much, when you get in, I tell people all the time, look, this isn't about chemistry. This is about botany. Chemistry is fine. And is there some chemistry involved in botany? Sure, of course there's chemistry involved in everything. But it doesn't mean that has to be your only focus, and looking at NPK labels on a bottle isn't
Right.
going to guarantee you success.
Yeah.
And what I would encourage people to do is read the ingredients. Just
Yeah.
kind of like,
Read the back.
forget the NPK for a minute. Look on what he was talking about, ammonium nitrate. They make bombs out of that.
Yeah.
Phosphoric acid, they clean machine parts with phosphoric acid. Why would I want to put that in my soil?
Yeah.
They had an NPK number.
yeah.
I
Never
doesn't.
taught any better, I guess.
Well, right now here, part of the Master Gardener programs here are financed to teach people to reduce their fertilizers
Sure.
and their water because it's all becoming runoff. The nitrogen in these things are not soluble. They're not going into the plants. So people, I think I need more. So they put more, they water more. It just ends up getting washed into the water system eventually out on our coast here. Not good.
Or lakes.
But because
I
they're
don't want to get
NPK
I don't want to anger anybody in Florida, but is that part of the bloom problem?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Probably, yeah.
Yes, it is. And so a lot of these counties, we have these fertilizer ordinances where you're not supposed to
Right.
use certain fertilizers, like summer when it's rainy season, and they're not tight enough. And so they're working on tightening up the ordinances because they're finally waking up with enough blooms going, hey, this is a problem. And it's not, the farmers have straightened out only because it costs them to over fertilize. So it's not them, it's the homeowners that are causing
gonna
these problems. Yeah.
Look, farmers get beaten up on this issue, and okay, that's a part of the discussion. But what you just touched on, it's homeowners that cause the biggest amount of over application. God damn it, I'm going to get that yard of mine green if it kills me. Well, it may, but
And all of us, I guess.
Well, now go get the Roundup. We got weeds.
Yeah. So, and when, by the time you start spraying on your pesticides, and then add on, your fungicides and then herbicides, and you got a toxic waste dump in your backyard, or they could, get a hold of you guys and have them bring out some real soil and put in the raised beds that you guys contract with, the structure stuff, and you put your soil in. They're going to be up and running in just a matter of a few weeks. I mean, their plants are going to be pumping it.
Yeah, it's the way we always tell people: the more you spray, the more you have to. So that's what chemicals do for you. Just runs up the bill and adds poison to everything. We've got a lot of folks.
That's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we have folks that have used the soil and then they do the teas once a week, and they're like, "I'll take more." And I go,
Yeah.
"How's everything going?" But we also teach them that, let's face it, you fill a raised bed garden with soil, you're spending some money. So it's a $200 tomato, basically. But once you have the soil,
What's that book about? It was that title in it about how I spent $1,000 growing a tomato plant or something like this.
yeah.
It's some concept like that. Yeah.
But it's really an investment because if you have a
Yeah.
living soil, you make
Right.
the investment to start it right, and you just feed the soil. It becomes
Right.
pennies,
Right.
and then you have these an abundant amount of great tasting food that reminds you of like when your grandparents had a garden. It tastes
Right.
like that. It looks like that. Yeah, it might not be a perfect shape, but man, you cannot pass the flavor up. It's just, and it's full of nutrients.
I mean, even the initial cost to it isn't. I mean, if you were to break it down, it's going to still be comparison to what you would buy in the
Actually,
store.
our soil, when you buy it by the yard, is $2 cheaper than the organic stuff at the box store, and we deliver it. And
I'm
so you
such
look
a
at that and you go, "Come on, we're starting you off right." And the reason we can do that is because we make the worm castings. We control that organic stuff, and that's our advantage.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
No, I was going to say the other thing too, for to consider is that when we grow top quality produce, we're more inclined to eat it, which benefits us physically and mentally. So I'm not saying it can replace medicine. I'm not,
Sure.
but what I am saying is that you can fine tune your defense systems in our
Yes.
bodies in the same way that we fine tune those defense systems in our plants. In our plants, it's called SAR, systemic acquired resistance. There's also HAR, hormonal acquired
Hormonal.
resistance. And those what things like Karanja and neem and kelp provide are the necessary secondary metabolites to affect those what we call immune systems in the human. They call them pathways in plants. Chitinase, salicylic acid pathways. I mean, there's several. You're not going to accomplish that with a bag of dirt. And what you guys are providing is soil, living soil versus a bag of dirt
Yeah.
that you're going to have to start amending the day that you bring it home and stick your tomato start in it or whatever you're growing.
And then end up having to use chemicals because you got
And probably throw them
every
out.
bug and disease. Like,
Right.
you know, if this is the bacterial problems here in Florida, this is the fungal problems. It's
Yes.
huge. And then the bugs. But the bugs really, these things only go after plants that are stressed or do not have what they need from the soil. And this is nature's way. So if you start out with dirt that's, you know, just
And I mean, I guess I wanted to touch maybe on, we have something called like the living soil kit that we're, talking about where,
Oh.
so you do buy a bag of dirt, right? You're going to go buy a bag of dirt, but we can provide you with the castings and the nutrients.
Yeah, we actually sell a
to
kit
make your
now.
own living soil.
So
And
you
try
can go
it.
get a cheap bag of organic, what they call soil at the box store, but it comes with the worm castings and the minerals you need and the nutrients you need to bring that thing
And once
up
again,
to
that's
par.
the important part is the worm castings. That's the key to all of this.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Otherwise,
Yeah,
just
the
use
worm
chemicals.
castings, it can't be overstated. Okay, in this part of the world, we have Oregon has the highest density of certified organic farms per capita, I think is the phrase used, of any other state in the United States. And you mentioned NPK test. Here's a test organic farmers use. They take a tarp, they spread it out, they dig up a cubic foot of soil. They're considered buying or analyzing, and they dump that soil on the tarp, and then they break it apart and count the number of worms. Because if your soil is biologically alive, it's going to be active with all kinds of soil. These are good ones too. And soil mites, roly-poly bugs, shredders, worms, rogue beetles. I mean, it's going to be
Alive.
alive. That's what it takes to grow good plants is a biologically alive soil. I'm not saying you got to have all these in your home, but we can bypass a lot of that by using the worm castings because that's like in a human, that's the skeletal and the mental intelligence system of a human. That's what worm castings are to a plant.
Yeah, I mean,
all the pistons are firing,
exactly. Well, we'll tell people, these are all the bugs in the world. These are the bad bugs.
Yes. It's
Okay,
like
so-
less than 8%, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and those are the ones that'll come in and like an army of them show up to attack your plant because your plant's missing something.
Right.
Okay, there's a smell not coming off your plant. A terpene's not firing, and they go, okay, let's eat it. You put the right stuff in the soil, it becomes systemic in the plant. And the plant's just got its own guards up, and the bugs, they're not bothering it.
No.
But again, you got to have a living soil. You got to have those things. If everything that a plant needs is in the soil, the plant will take
Right.
care of itself.
Right. There've been, I live in the land of ancient forest. They've been around for a long time. That's why I call them ancient forest. and no one's out there checking the pH
Yeah.
or doing
Sure,
a
sure.
chemical
Somehow it's
profile.
working.
How it works.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, you can't see the sky because these trees are so tall.
That they're in the
right?
way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we would benefit in our home gardening enterprises to treat it as give the plant the right tools, and
Right.
your participation is limited to watering. After that, once you
Very true. Very true. And you can take. You don't have to go and rip everything out and start from scratch. You can take whatever the heck you got going on and add
Right.
some of these ingredients like rock dust
Absolutely.
and kelp to the around a fruit tree. You could change a fruit tree.
yes,
And I've seen it where two of them together and a guy did side by side and it's twice the size in the second year. Only because, listen, we got sand here. Everything's been leached out. Okay, so you start putting this stuff around your trees, castings, kelp, rock dust. I mean, you just automatically in a few days start seeing the changes because you're finally giving these plants, these trees, the stuff they need. And you see
that
the
we're
difference.
lacking here in our soils.
Yeah, so
already,
you don't. You could just use a lot. We sell the ingredients separate too, but you can use these different combinations to take whatever it is you got going on and bring it up to living soil, and bring up the health
Right.
and the production of your plants and the resistance to pests and diseases. And it doesn't take much.
no, that's the beauty and cutting off the poisons
Yeah,
as soon as possible. As far as I mean, I'm sure you've had that with clients. Just put the poison away. Just give us a few days.
lot. Yeah,
a
yeah.
week, yeah, I'm sure, but it is a learning process, and you've got the right materials. You brought rock dust in. Let's face it, you don't have a lot of volcanoes down there in Florida, so getting things like basalt and pumice and
we got it though. It took.
those are kind of like foreign. You got to import that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Karanja, that's grown now here,
I know, that's
organically and
amazing.
processed here. And it's a game changer for us because the Karanja itself is almost like a natural fertilizer. Besides
is.
all the protective properties.
Well, the fact that it's produced right there in Florida, meaning that it's not sitting on not trying to be a smart ass here, but a slow boat from India. Was it 6 weeks to get from
Yeah.
Mumbai to
Sure.
Yeah.
one of the big ports on the East Coast?
Yeah, it's fresh.
So-
Yeah.
Yeah,
fresh.
and right.
And it
you
makes
got
it makes a difference. The
Fresh,
freshness
yeah.
makes a difference.
Absolutely.
After about a year, it starts to lose some of its efficacy as far as these, pesticidal and fungicidal problems. There's still fertilizer capabilities, but it's fresh is always better. It's like aloe. We sell aloe powder for those that don't have aloe vera, so they can use it in these different things. But if you're growing fresh aloe here, which you can in Florida, and it grows native in the sand, that for plants is like magic for plants. And we use that in combination with these other ingredients and just literally turn plants and trees around in days. And it's
Aloe
amazing.
vera was the first plant domesticated by the human race for its medicinal properties, and it was the Egyptians and the most ancient of the empires. It began being, of course, they didn't have the science to understand why this was, but when they would prepare the bodies for mummification, they would wipe them down with the gel from the aloe vera. What they didn't understand then is that they were killing the bacteria and the fungi so that the bodies didn't rot before, because it took several weeks to mummify a corpse. And then the plant ended up in India, which for a lot of reasons, because of the Silk Road to the north, and then later the spice trade. India has been an epicenter of spices and plants going back several thousand years. So once India spread that thing around, aloe vera, it went all over Asia, and even in the New World. I always love that term. Like it just got discovered.
Yeah, sure.
But in Mexico, it's not uncommon to have aloe vera plants in the kitchen for cuts, for burns.
Yeah.
It's you have a plant and you do a lot of cooking, you have an aloe vera plant, you get a burn, you just take a knife and cut off the end and rub it on. And I've even one time grabbed a cast iron skillet without thinking that I just pulled out of the oven. And I mean, it was, 400 degrees.
Scalding.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
And I got the aloe vera gel in my hand. I didn't even get a welt.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
it just removed the sting. So imagine what that does in the soil to facilitate that plant being kept healthy, giving it the
Well-
right compounds,
Look at the formula you showed us for rooting gel, right?
Oh, yeah.
Aloe vera,
Yeah.
right? Humic acid and then kelp. And then you dip your cuttings in there. Why are you buying this $30 bottle of rooting gel? You can actually just take the aloe vera, cut it off, and stick your roots in there,
Yep.
and it'll grow.
Well,
It's
just to
nature's.
brag a little bit, I was the one that brought aloe vera to the party. I was also the one that brought barley malted grain.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
another important.
that
has
that's a whole
been
another maybe
game changer on making castings, boy. I'll tell you
maybe
what.
the whole talk about that maybe about how the
So-
barley really affects the.
So we got
casting.
with Jim, just so the audience knows, and we started developing this feed for the worms, and then testing. So we'd weigh out how much substrate, people call it bedding, but it's substrate because it's going to break down to, and the different amounts of the ingredients that we feed to see not only how fast we can get good quality castings, but also worm weight. And man, we just kept upping the malted barley just because of the action, the sugars and the enzymes in there. And man, we push castings, we get worm weight, the quality of the castings. I can't say enough about malted barley. We put it in the soil mix, we put it in the feed teas, everywhere. Tell them about malted barley. This is like almost magical in itself.
So barley was the first plant that the human race domesticated so they could grow their own food. So that allowed the human race to go from food gatherers to food producers, which gave way to societies,
Yeah.
distribution centers,
Agricultural, yeah. Agricultural societies too. Yeah.
and barley, because of, all right, all grains contain amylase. That's what's in our saliva is amylase. And there's two forms of amylase in our mouth, alpha amylase and beta amylase. And in the world of grains, only barley has both of those as well. Other grains like wheat, rye, rice, what have you, only have the alpha amylase. And that's what makes beer. So the human race, not to get drunk, but and again, they didn't understand the science, but when they made brewed beer or something with these grains, it purified it. So more people have died from bad water in the story of the human race than all the wars combined. So we've been drinking beer. There's a really good documentary, something with the title and how beer saved the world or whatever, something along those lines. It goes back to the whole history. And so we're predisposed because of this history of enjoying beer, and there isn't a society that doesn't brew beer.
Yeah.
Go to Asia, Africa.
Yeah, some form of beer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we grow some of the best barley in the world here in the Northwest, and that's attributed to our volcanic soils. This is a string of volcanoes. The Cascades is all those mountains are all volcanoes. So the lands around it, and we ship barley all over the world. That's how good it is. The really good stuff. So
Now it can't be spent. It has to be.
Yeah, we're not talking about using the spent barley after you make the beer.
no, right, no, right.
Yeah,
No,
we're
it's
talking-
not that. No, this is what they mix with the barley. Excuse me, beer under German law. I think it was rescinded, but back in 14 or 1500s, Prince Edward
Oh, yeah, it
dictated
has to
that
be
beer
free.
could only have 3 ingredients: water, barley, and hops. That's it. No raspberries, no blueberries, there's other crap.
Butterscotch, yeah.
I don't want raspberries in my beer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so, and I knew that in baking artisan breads that they would add something that they just called malt. I didn't know what malt meant. So one day I'm out walking around one of the big forest up here, and I got to a place where had a signal for my cell phone, and they referred to it as diastatic malt. I had no idea what that meant, so I looked it up. And I went, "Wow, interesting. That means malt that's still alive. The enzymes is all malting means is that you sprouted it,
Right.
and then you arrested it. Now, if you caramelize it because you want to do an ale for color or flavor, that's fine, but you've also deactivated those enzymes through the heat. So
Right.
when you look at a beer recipe, it may have 4 or 5 different malts, but one of them has to be the raw malt. And that's what's called the diastatic malt. And the others are called non-diastatic malt, meaning that these are here for flavor and color. And this one here is to get the converting the sugars. Let me explain what yeast is. A single-celled fungi, the type used to make beer and bread. And fungi aren't like plants or like humans. They take in air, they use the oxygen, they expel the CO2. So when they use it to brew beer, those bubbles are CO2. And just like in bread, the holes in the bread are from the gluten trapping the bubbles,
The gas.
And that's what gives you the grain, not the grain, but the texture. So I'm sitting there thinking, so if this works on the yeast in the bread, why wouldn't it work in the soil?
And explain to them about malted barley, the sugar, the enzymes, and how that feeds.
Right. Well, these enzymes are what they're referred to as cofactors, and they move metabolic functions along. And in the grain that's malted, sprouted, again, that's all it means is that it was sprouted, are enzymes, amylase, urease for converting urea, which is a form of nitrogen, into a form the plant can use, phosphatase, phosphorus, protease, protein, chitin. That's a whole other, we could do a couple-hour show on chitin. But in any event, all these things assist the plant's defense system and growth patterns because it contains plant PGRs, plant phytohormones, all these things in this little product used to make beer. I find that fascinating.
It is. And then the sugar, right, that comes out of the malted barley, that's what, for us, it's what it feeds the bacteria, just explodes.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, even when, just the material in the function of malting the grains provides like 350 different species of bacteria, 150 species of fungi, something like 80 species of protozoa. So all those things we're increasing the biology of our soil, and it's biology that grows plants, not a bottle of something from the shelf at Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever.
Right, exactly. Well, just look at a forest. You got some bug holes here and there, but it's in balance because things grow up, the leaves fall down, they get incorporated into the soil. There's no chemicals, like you said. Nobody's running around with an NPK check.
No.
It's botany. It's this whole thing going on, but it's the diversification of all those living organisms working with, stuff that's been shattered over time, the rock dust. And that's what makes things happen. I mean, that's the way the world was designed, the way it works. You could call it God, you could call it, evolution, whatever. That's just how it works.
Right.
Okay?
When you think about it, the first plants, it's estimated, arrived 450 million years ago. So they kind of got this thing down. You know what I
My
mean?
point. Yep.
Yep.
Human hubris on so many levels and so many things cause more problems sometimes, unless letting things work at their own pace. Now we do it because we want to increase production. Again, it usually goes back to some
Greed.
ironic goals. I don't know if ironic's the right word, but yeah, ironic. That because you can produce 3 times more tomatoes and you're growing a variety because of shelf life, but it has little to do with human nutrition.
Or taste.
Or yeah, forget that.
Yeah, forget that.
But you're going to put salad dressing on it. Why would
Exactly.
you? Right? Yeah. Get some. Don't you get olive oil? Just get a bottle of. I don't know, Uncle Tom's Thousand Island dressing.
There you go.
Read the list of ingredients.
Sugars and whatnot.
I don't eat salad for salad. I eat salad because it's an excuse to have the dressing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Basically.
So, I think that what you guys are doing is so critically important because you're not going to touch everyone, but the people that you do touch, you're going to show them how to grow good plants, and they in turn will share it with their family members and friends, and maybe their garden club they belong to. Because once you hit this and you see, wow, look at these plants. I got the biggest hibiscus or the biggest, hosta or whatever, species or variety of plant you want to grow. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Or
I
you
mean,
can
we're
fix the
always
garden.
so thankful and kind of grateful for.
Yeah,
meeting you.
I got to say, if it wasn't for you
How you
meeting
touched
you
us, and I mean,
and learning these things from you, and then actually then putting them into action, one, we wouldn't have had that success in our
ups
own
and
house, in our own
downs.
yard, but then we wouldn't have been on this journey that ended up into a business. So big thanks to you for all the knowledge you
Oh, you're
shared,
welcome.
everybody.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I got to tell people, if you haven't tried this, whether you buy from us or somebody else, the formula is on the website. It's open source. You got to try this stuff. You'll be amazed at the results. And like I said, gardening can be fun, and the food tastes great. And it's funny. You'll walk in, even if it's just an herb, and you walk into your house with that, and just look at everyone's faces. There's just a smirk on it, like, we grew that. It's going to taste good. They just know. There's just something about it. Forget about the fact that it's relaxing, therapeutic, all that. Just if you just want good tasting food with nutrition and ease, you got to do this. You just got to do
yeah,
this.
I mean, and from there, I still want to do like the shameless plug of like
Shameless plug.
like the whole Karanja, once again covering that, how that's important, how that's here in Florida.
I mean, that will do a 4x8 garden.
Yeah, that does a 4x8 garden. We showed you the 15 pounds.
We showed you the 15 pounds of cat. Do a 4x8 garden.
Can you bring that up again? I mean, just the quality.
Okay. Shameless plug. Here we go.
Just,
I mean, that's really good. You've got the castings in a bag that breathes.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a breathable bag. We've thought this through.
Right.
It holds its moisture content.
There you go.
I mean, I want to see if I can kind of get.
If you get the
up in
camera
there,
to
like,
show you how.
It's.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah, it might
just
not be
like
in
coffee.
focus, but this is black gold, I guess.
Yeah.
It is.
So
Yeah. I mean,
you just sprinkle this around your plants, and that's all you need to really do.
yeah.
Literally, a handful like this around each stalk.
That's all you need.
Is done in China. It's the most ancient of the tea gardens that were at one time only reserved for the royalty, the royal houses. That was all that was fed those plants. They didn't run over to Home Depot and get a bag of
Sure.
Wizzy plant.
Was it bloom something? Well, I would tell
Yeah.
people, if you did nothing else, start with castings.
Yes, right, because that's going to fix so many issues, so many.
Yeah.
I can't overstate it. I didn't know what I was doing until I ran into my worm guy 20 something years ago. And first time I mixed the soil and used it, I went, oh, so that's how it's supposed to work, huh? Like things just explode, look like Jurassic Park. Well, you've seen in your client's home. And with the weather down there, you guys must see some incredible gardens.
Oh, we
Oh,
do.
Yeah.
they tell
Lakes
you
on
here,
lakes, food forests.
people say, well, you don't grow in the summer here. I'm like, well, I beg to differ. You don't grow traditional crops like you see up north. But if you use the Asian crops, and there's a lot of places here that sell the seeds,
Caribbean.
and the Caribbean crops that start
Right.
off in our crappy soil, and when you give them a little bit of castings, these things take off. And so you can literally be growing things year round here. And you got to keep in mind, if I'm going to keep taking from the soil, maybe I want to plant beans in the summer, help fix some things back into it. You got to do the
Can I
typical
touch on
best.
that for a minute?
Sure.
Yeah.
The use of what is called cover crops is we plant things like legumes, beans, lentils. So you're going to get food from it. That's a positive. And equally important is that legumes are able to take the almighty nitrogen out of the atmosphere and fix it in the soil around the root system so that when you chop that plant and let it decompose,
Right.
nitrogen becomes part of the substrate, the soil.
It builds the
And-
tilth. It builds the tilth up.
Yeah, right. And the root system itself gives you airways and pathways for water. So your cover crops can't be overstated, and you don't have to go and get crazy. I mean, if you went and bought some pinto beans
Yeah.
or
It's-
legumes,
from the
like
store,
lentils.
from the grocery store.
Yeah.
Exactly. If
I
you-
mean,
that's-
it's not, clover is a bit, at least up here, I'm sure it is there too. But your crimson clover, red clovers, and some of your better farm stores should have like a 12, usually it's like 8, 9, or 10 different. You're going to get some hairy vetch, you get some winter rye, you could probably get some alfalfa. You get the idea.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
diversity, diversity, diversity.
Right.
That's how I
And
like the word soil building.
you
Because
could
it
do
is-
that. You could do that in your pots too. People think, well, I need
Absolutely,
no.
yes.
You can cover crop in a pot. It's
Absolutely.
just the plant.
Right.
You
And
know.
that alone is going to elevate the quality of the soil again by giving the soil structure that, with pathways for air and water to get down into that root zone, root system.
And the more roots holds more water,
Yes.
keeps the consistency a whole lot better, because that's half the issue down here is drying the plants out.
Well, okay. I'm glad you brought that up. The majority of water that's applied, and this is agriculture, nursery stock, home gardens, the majority of water that we apply doesn't get taken up by the plants. It evaporates, goes up into the atmosphere. More roots you have,
More water.
hold water in the soil, so you water less. And so what part of the country isn't concerned about water usage? It's a big issue.
All
Not
over,
only
yeah.
that, but the leaves on a plant, when the water is consistent, they're not drooping.
Right.
When they droop, they're not
Right.
taking the amount of sunlight to make the amount of sugars they need to send down to the
Right.
to the biology. So you keep them solar panels at optimum levels by just keeping the moisture consistent in the soil.
Well, let me touch back on malted barley
Okay.
because you brought up using it in your worm castings, or and during the process of making
Right.
castings. Okay, so in the gut of the worm, they don't have a mouth. Excuse me, they have a mouth. They don't have teeth and they don't have a stomach. They have a digestive tract, and in that digestive tract, enzymes are used to convert that material, which is bacteria poop. That's what they eat. Some people like to use the word exude. We could call it, bacteria manure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and it's enzymes that turn that into castings and not worm manure. Now, not all worms are composting worms,
Yeah.
but to trigger specific microbial reactions in the soil, the worms exude enzymes from their skins to achieve specific action to break this or that material down. So when we add barley, we're adding, I just ran over the high points, like the 10 or 12 that really, but it's more like 200 enzymes in that one material.
Yeah.
And all that becomes a cohesive network to produce the difference between a bag of something at Home Depot versus what you guys are making, which is honest to God, black gold. The
Yeah,
stuff that make plants go.
and I wanted to touch about how the castings, about how the EC value and how all the carbon to nitrogen ratios, some of the other and things that aren't,
Other things you
known
don't find.
about.
The test we do for worm castings is not the test you do to have the label on the castings. So we're looking for carbon content, electrical conductivity. Yeah.
In the conventional gardening world, we call that label building.
Yeah.
Yeah. Confuse them. Confuse your public, confuse your customers. Well, it's got all this stuff. Yeah, it's got a lot of stuff in it. Yeah, I'll give you that. I'm not sure why I said that.
We're dedicated to making a quality product.
Yes.
And continue to keep
Yeah, we're not
doing
going to
that,
supply the world. We know that. We don't want that.
And the results speak for themselves. I mean,
Yeah.
when you work with a client and you get their garden up and running, you're not going to be getting phone calls. Hey, how come my azaleas are dying, or whatever plant? You're just going to get. Can I give your number to my friend? They live over in Wacom County, or something like that. And that's what it's about. Is you've got a prize program to offer people to show them a different way of approaching gardening.
Yeah.
And that's a really healthy hobby. You're out in the sun, you're getting your hands dirty. There's a benefit there.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm an adult that gets to play in the dirt. I couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
Yeah, get to be outside. Yeah,
So,
for sure.
we got to kind of. I'd love.
Yeah,
we could go on and talk, but
forever,
we've got to get up
Jim.
to the farm to go feed the worms.
And we'll have more talks like this.
Yeah,
we talk like this all the time, but this is the first time we put it on.
But we're just trying to share with our audience some of this knowledge and how we derive this, how we get there,
Sure.
and start to help educate people here.
Right.
And once they find out how easy it really is, it's like, give me more, And then of course they pass it along. So I think we're doing the right thing here,
I did an interview a couple of weeks ago with Jeremy from Build a Soil, and I checked this morning because I was curious. And so anyway, it's been viewed over 16,220 times. It was 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have that
And
kind of reach.
I was laughing. We need more soldiers out there, to spread the word,
Exactly.
Get the fertilizers, get your soil together.
That's it.
And life will be good.
That's it.
Did you want to? I know you mentioned Jeremy at Build a Soil, but did you want to mention anything else that you're kind of working on, or anything else like that?
Oh yeah, I've been. There's a couple seminars. You're not gonna get me out of Oregon. I'm not going to Ohio or Oklahoma. We can do it Zoom. Okay. I don't need to sit in a hotel, and get bored to tears with some of my detractors. You can call me names, just get on the screen and do that. I don't have to fly there. But yeah, I do a lot of what I would call outreach programs and showing people how to make more informed, I won't say better, how about more informed decisions about what they use in their soil mixes. That's my focus, is soil.
The soil.
And getting, because I believe strongly, and my experience has shown me over and over and over, that the more effort I put into my soil, the better plants I grow, irrespective of somebody's latest,
Yeah.
the cure-all or this one's magical. No, it isn't. Worm castings are magical.
Yeah.
Ammonium nitrate will never be magical.
No.
Okay, or some weird what is it? Oh yeah, soluble potash, one of my favorite. What does that mean? I'm not sure. Let me look it up on Wikipedia. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Let me know what you find out. So yeah, I'm really glad you guys are killing it down there. I mean, you got all the right tools. You got all the right that Karanja thing. I mean,
Yeah.
if I could get a truckload of that up in the Northwest, I'd probably make some serious money. But
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you for waking up early and getting on this podcast, or I mean, getting on this video
that's
chat with
great.
us, right?
Yeah, we appreciate everything you do. You know, it's and
Well,
it's
you
always
guys are more than
it's always
welcome.
fun.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
really
always
happy
learning.
for your success. You know, really.
Well, we owe it to you. So I just want to, we owe it to you. We would have never known about this if I had never met you at the Terviva plant. We would have never known, right? And so
First night I met you and I was talking in Tom's living room, I could see the look on your faces. Is this guy sober? You know,
But now
I
we've
was talking about
become great friends. I've even
Yeah.
gone out there to
Yeah.
visit you, so
yeah, Krista the visit thing, and then COVID came, of course.
but-
No, it's always. I love talking to you. It's always we get off on other topics and stuff, and just a lot of fun. You're just a
yeah, I mean, stay tuned for more. I mean,
Yeah.
we hope to do this more often.
yeah. Stay
so.
tuned for more.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, Jim. We're gonna sign off here now and let you go do what you got to do. We got to go feed worms, and bye to everybody else out there. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, I want to thank the audience for taking the time to listen to the old man talk about jibber jabber.
Yeah,
So,
look them up on the. Just type in
Yeah, look
Clackamas
me up
Coot.
online. You'll see that this isn't.
Yeah, go watch. You'll learn so much.
I have a track record. You know.
You will get so much education out of it. It's amazing. So,
Well,
All right, folks.
all right,
All right,
thanks.
Jim.
Talk to you later.
Have a good one. Bye bye.
All right.
all right, bye.